Hey everybody, and welcome to the Family Fudge. I'm Jennifer, and today I'm talking about breakfast. Now, I love sharing breakfast ideas, and I've shared a lot of my favorite go-to breakfast ideas on this channel. But in today's video, I'm actually going to be focusing on breakfast freezer meals, and I'm going to be sharing 8 all new recipes. I've never shared these before. They're all super delicious, super easy, and kid-friendly too. And you guys, I am super excited about today's video because it is in collaboration with 2 of my favorite YouTube ladies, Kimmy from Shoes in Her Apron and Jamerelle Stewart. They both have so many awesome recipes, you'll definitely want to check them out. Over on Kimmy's channel, she also shares lots of cleaning motivation, grocery hauls, and lots of fun day in the life videos. Then over on Jamerelle's channel, she specializes in large family recipes, mega big grocery hauls, and she also shares lots of homeschool mom day in the life videos. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link to their channels in the description box below, so when you're done here, definitely go check them out. Now, if this is your first time on this channel, I share lots and lots of lunch ideas. I also share grocery hauls, easy recipes, and family travel vlogs. So I invite you to hit that red subscribe button so you can become part of our family. All of these recipes will be available on thefamilyfudge.com if you'd like to print them out and make them yourself. First up, I'm going to be making 2 different versions of what I like to call breakfast spirals. Now, these are a lot like making cinnamon rolls, but there's no cinnamon and these are not sweet. These are definitely savory. I'm going to use this crescent dough. Now, I really like the crescent sheet dough because it's all one big piece. But if you can't find this, you can totally use a regular crescent dough. You'll just have to pinch the seams together first. I'm going to start this recipe by crisping up my bacon. Now, I'm using pre-cooked bacon here, definitely a shortcut. I'm just going to pop this into the microwave for a couple of minutes, and when it's nice and crispy, I'm going to go ahead and chop it up. Next, it's time to scramble the eggs. I'm going to cook these in a little bit of butter. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to taste. Then, when they're done, I'm going to use my spatula to break them up into really small pieces. That way, these can fit better into my breakfast spirals. Next, I'm going to open up my can of dough and I'm going to roll this out onto a floured surface. Now, I don't want my dough to be too thin, so I'm just rolling this out a bit. And now it's time to add the filling. First, I'm going to add some shredded cheddar cheese, and I'll go ahead and spread that out. Next, I'm adding the scrambled eggs. This is about 3 scrambled eggs here. And finally, I'm going to top this all off with the bacon crumbles. Now, before I roll this up, I'm going to take my rolling pin and gently press my ingredients just a little bit. Then I'm going to roll this whole thing up as tightly as I can. Now, like I said, this is a lot like making cinnamon rolls. Now, to make sure these breakfast spirals don't stick, I'm going to go ahead and spray them with a little bit of non-stick spray. Now, all I have to do is cut this into 8 mostly even pieces and then add them into my pan. So now that my kid-friendly version is done, I'm going to set that aside and prepare another version that is more to my tastes. Now, this is pretty much the same process as the first version, but instead of adding cheddar cheese, I'm going to add some Gruyere cheese. I'll top that with the scrambled eggs, followed by the bacon crumbles, and then to spice this up a bit, I'm also going to sprinkle a little bit of red pepper flakes all over the top. And then, just because I enjoy them so much, I'm also going to sprinkle just a handful of chopped green onion. And then, just like before, I'm going to press this into the dough just a little bit and then roll it up. I'm going to cut this into 8 pieces as well and then add it to my pan. So today I went ahead and made 4 batches of these breakfast spirals, and I'm actually going to freeze them in the same pans they're going to cook in later, so that'll be super convenient. Next, I'm going to go ahead and write exactly what they are on the top. I'm gonna write the date, and then they're ready for the freezer. Now, when you want to cook these, you can just take them out of the freezer, unwrap them, and you can pop them into the oven completely frozen. You don't have to thaw them first. I'm gonna cook these at 350 for about 10 to 12 minutes, or until they're lightly golden brown. And these are looking so good. Now, I like to serve these warm right out of the oven. I really like to eat these with salsa, but my kids prefer to dip these in ketchup. Okay guys, next up I'm going to be making 2 different breakfast casseroles. Now so many of you have asked me to show you exactly what I do with all of the leftover crusts that I cut off of my kids' sandwiches, and now I can finally show you. Now normally for these recipes I like to use 9x13 aluminum pans, but this time instead of using the disposable pans, I picked up 4 of these smaller pans from Walmart. Now for my breakfast casseroles, I'm going to be making a sweet version and a savory version. And I'm going to go ahead and make the sweet version of the breakfast casserole first. Now of course, this recipe starts off with the bread crusts. Whenever I'm making lunches, I go ahead and save the crusts in a Ziploc bag. And when my Ziploc bag is full, then I'm ready to make these recipes. Before I add these into my pans, I do want to go ahead and chop them up just a little bit more, just to make sure that these are bite-sized pieces. I'll go ahead and add those right in there. Next, to a medium-sized mixing bowl, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 cups of milk, followed by 5 eggs, 2 tablespoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now I'm going to whisk this all up together, then I'm going to very carefully pour it all over the bread. Half in this pan and half in that pan. Now I do want to go ahead and press this bread down a little bit and sort of mix it all around. And now that is pretty much all there is to the sweet version of my breakfast casserole. At this point, I'm not going to bake it. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it in some plastic wrap. You could also add a layer of foil if you wanted to. And then I'm going to place it in the freezer. Now moving on to the savory version of the breakfast casserole. For this recipe, I'm going to start by sauteing some peppers, onions, and mushrooms, and I'm just going to cook these until they're softened. Now I'm going to go ahead and set these aside and get the bread ready. Now I'm not sure if I said this before, but this is about 11 pieces of bread. If you don't have breadcrumbs, you could totally use any kind of bread you want. You just want to cut it up and get it into the pan. Next, I'm going to add some cooked cubed ham right on top of the bread. I'm using about a cup of ham and I'm just dividing it between the 2 different pans. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add those onions and peppers and mushrooms. These are smelling so good. I did go ahead and season these a little bit with salt and pepper as I was cooking them, so they have a lot of good flavor already. Next, it's time to pour on the egg mixture. And this egg mixture is pretty similar to the one in my last recipe, but obviously I'm not going to be adding any cinnamon or sugar to this. It's basically just eggs, milk, salt, and pepper. Once that is whisked all together, I'm just going to pour it all over the bread. And then the very last thing I'm going to do is top it with some shredded cheddar cheese. And I'm not skimping on the cheese. I'm going to use about a cup here. Now at this point, I'm not going to cook this. I'm actually going to wrap it in some saran wrap and stick it into the freezer. Now when you're ready to cook these breakfast casseroles, all you have to do is grab them directly from the freezer, remove the plastic wrap, and pop them into the oven. And these are both going to take about 45 to 50 minutes at 350 degrees, or basically until they are solid in the center. Now for my sweet casserole, I like to drizzle a little bit of maple syrup directly on the top, or you could also add some powdered sugar. That would be delicious. This casserole is seriously good. It tastes just like French toast. And then the savory casserole doesn't need anything else added to it, but if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of hot sauce. That would be yummy. Next up, I'm going to be making 2 different versions of breakfast biscuit bombs. Now, if I had to pick a favorite freezer breakfast meal, this would definitely be my number 1. It is so good. Now, to make these, you're going to need a can of jumbo flaky biscuits. That part is kind of important and you'll see why later. Now for these, my first step is going to be to prepare the filling for these biscuit bombs. And I'm going to go ahead and make the kid-friendly version first. To my pan here, I went ahead and added a little bit of butter. And once that is nice and melted, I'm going to go ahead and crack 5 eggs into this pan. I'll go ahead and scramble those up. I'll add some salt and pepper. And then just before the eggs are done, I'm going to add in 1 cup of cooked cubed ham and about 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I'm going to stir that to combine, and when the cheese is melted, I'll be ready for the next step. On a greased baking sheet, I'm going to go ahead and set out my biscuits. Then I'm going to take each one and I'm going to very gently pull them apart right in the middle, but not all the way. I'm really just trying to create a pocket for our filling. And this is really why you want to get the flaky biscuit dough, because I'm not quite sure that regular biscuit dough will pull apart so easily. So basically, I'm going to fill each biscuit with as much of this filling as I can. And then to close them up, I'm going to pinch the edge just like this to make sure that it's sealed. Now I'm going to repeat this for all of the other biscuits, and when they're all done, they're ready for the oven. Now these are going to take about 18 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees. Now while those are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the second version of the breakfast bomb. And this is definitely a version that I would prefer. This one's going to start off very similar to the first version with just a few changes. With this version, after I cook the eggs, instead of adding cheddar cheese, I'm going to be adding pepper jack cheese. And then I'm also going to mix in a few chopped green onions. This is not really an ingredient that my kids would enjoy, but I definitely do. So now that this is ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and fill the biscuits the same way as the first ones. I'm trying my best to divide this evenly amongst all 8 biscuits. So now that these are all filled and they're sealed on the edges, they're almost done. But before I stick these into the oven, I'm going to brush a little bit of egg wash on the top of each one. This is going to make each biscuit look really nice and brown on top, and it's also going to help our everything but the bagel seasoning stick to the top. If you've never tried this seasoning, I definitely recommend it. There's onion and garlic in there. It is really good. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on the top of each little biscuit. Now, usually I like to serve these piping hot right out of the oven. But if I want to put these in the freezer, I'm going to go ahead and let them cool down completely. There are 2 different ways you can freeze these. One way is to wrap them individually in a little bit of plastic wrap, or you can actually stick the entire tray into the freezer, and after about an hour, they will be frozen enough you can actually put all of the biscuits in a freezer bag together and they won't stick. And then you can store them just like that for up to 3 months. Now when you want to reheat them, you can just pull them out of the freezer, unwrap them. I like to cover mine with a paper towel and then stick them in the microwave for about 1 to 2 minutes. Or if you wanted to, you could go ahead and reheat these in the oven or the toaster oven. That way it does take a little bit more time, but it will also leave you with a flakier biscuit, which is always a good thing in my book. And finally, I'm going to be making some Instant Pot breakfast burritos. Now, there are lots of different ways to make breakfast burritos, but this one you might not have seen before. Now, to make these quick and easy, I'm going to be using some of these all-natural sausage crumbles. I really like the turkey sausage for this. It's a lot less greasy. But if you don't want to use sausage, you could also use ham or bacon. Now I am going to be making 2 different versions of these breakfast burritos, and in version number 1, I'm going to start by cracking 10 eggs into my bowl. Now I know that seems like a lot of eggs, but this recipe does make 10 breakfast burritos. Next, I'm going to be adding 3 tablespoons of half and half, followed by a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. I'm going to go ahead and mix this all up and then set it aside. Now at this point you definitely could go ahead and cook these eggs on the stove, but for today's recipe I'm going to cook these in my Instant Pot. To cook the eggs, I'm going to be using these really cool silicone trays. These are very long and deep, which make them the perfect size for a burrito. Now I actually found these on Amazon, but if you don't have these pans, you could also use a silicone egg bite tray as well. To my silicone trays, I'm going to start by adding about 2 tablespoons of these sausage crumbles into each little section. Then I'm going to very carefully pour the egg mixture on top. I'm going to try to fill these as evenly as I can, and you really only want to fill these up about halfway. You definitely don't want to overfill these little sections, or you might end up with a big mess inside your Instant Pot. So that is everything in version 1 of my breakfast burrito. Now let's move on to version 2. For version 2, my egg mixture starts out exactly the same. The only difference is I'm going to go ahead and spice this up just a little bit by adding 2 tablespoons of chopped green chilies. I just love that combination of eggs and chilies and cheese. It is so good. especially in breakfast burritos. So then, just like version 1, I went ahead and added 2 tablespoons of turkey sausage crumbles in here, followed by my egg mixture. And then lastly, I'm gonna add just a few pieces of chopped green onion right on the top. This is gonna add a lot of really yummy flavor, but it's also gonna help me tell the difference between the spicy eggs and the non-spicy eggs. Now this next part can be a little tricky, especially if you've never done this before, but what you're going to want to do is actually stack up these trays on the wire rack that came with my Instant Pot. I did go ahead and alternate each tray so they wouldn't be nestled inside each other, and I also added a small layer of aluminum foil, and that's pretty much just to keep the water out of my trays. Now before you add these eggs down inside, you definitely want to add 1 cup of water. Then I'm going to go ahead and add the lid onto my Instant Pot. I'm going to make sure that the valve is on sealing, not venting, and then I'm going to cook this on manual for 12 minutes. Then I'm going to let it naturally release for 8 minutes. Now check it out, you guys. Here's how they look when they are done. And surprisingly, these eggs pop right out and they stay together in this really interesting rectangle shape. So now that my eggs are all done, it's time to wrap up their breakfast burritos. Now anytime I'm making breakfast burritos, I do like to go ahead and soften my tortillas a little bit. I just add a damp paper towel to the top and then pop them in the microwave for about 30 seconds. That way they're nice and soft and easy to roll up. So in breakfast burrito version number 1, I'm gonna go ahead and add plenty of cheese, followed by my eggs, and then I'll wrap them up just like that. These are definitely the ones that my kids prefer. And then in version number 2, I'll start with my tortilla. I'll top this with a little bit of cheese. Then I'm gonna add a spoonful of salsa, followed by the eggs. And these are the ones that I added those green chilies and the green onions to. And then I'm just going to wrap it all up. Now to freeze these, what I like to do is line them up on a cookie sheet and then place the entire cookie sheet into the freezer for about an hour or 2. Once the burritos are frozen enough, I can go ahead and add them to a gallon freezer bag, and then these will stay good in the freezer for a long time. But honestly, these don't last very long in my house because we love them. Now to reheat these burritos is actually really easy. I'll just take a frozen one directly out of the bag, wrap it in a paper towel, and then pop it into the microwave. Usually this takes about 1 to 2 minutes to reheat fully, and then it's ready to enjoy. And speaking of enjoy, don't forget to go check out Kimmy's video over at She's in Her Apron, as well as Jay Morell's video over on her channel. I cannot wait to see what delicious freezer breakfast ideas they come up with. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.